Ms. Prachi, who is a senior HR professional currently based in Australia, but she has worked in Indian as well as global MNCs across Asia Pacific region. Uh, and she has seen, I think, in her 20 years, an entire spectrum of people getting into careers through interviews. She has conducted interviews for entry level positions and even the highest CEO and vice president level positions. So I hand over now to Prachi to take us through the session. And like I said, keep yourself muted and the video off. And if you have any questions, please send it on chat. Me, Prachi, or Chetan, or whoever, and we will coordinate to take up some of these questions during the session. Over to you, Prachi.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish. Thanks for giving an opportunity and such a gracious welcome to this webinar. Hello, everyone. I can see that we have participants joining us this afternoon, and we are 6 minutes beyond our time. So I'm going to just get started. This session, as Dr. Ashish shared with you, is about how to make most of the interviews. And I'm going to take a deep dive into the various kind of interviews that any organization can conduct. So if you are really looking forward to making most out of your next interview sessions, I would suggest keep your pen and paper ready and take notes as you go. It can, in session with me, it cannot be a one-way street. So you need to ask me questions and I'll be happy to answer them as much as I can. If you have submitted any questions before the sessions, we will try and take them. And if somebody is keen to do a mock interview, considering it is a webinar and virtual interviews will become a part of recruitment going forward. So we are in a very extraordinary times. None of us in our lifetime have seen something like that. And COVID-19 or a pandemic will change the way industry works, the way recruitment works, the way organization works, and work from home will become much more prevalent. At the same time, the virtual interviews would be the forefront. So I have kept my video on just to say hello to everyone there. And I'm happy to talk through a little more. So first and the foremost, I hope you have all your chat options ready because I have to start with you. I want all of you to think of a word or an image that you would be looking the way you think you should be looking while entering an interview, or a company that you want to work with. So your dream company. And I have 23 participants right now in this session. So I'm looking for 23 answers to kickstart this session. Can you all see your chat option? You can raise your hand. If you can't see, I'm not seeing any answers. Till I don't see the answers, it'll be really, really difficult for me to, I don't know what you're looking for. Yeah. So okay. So I have the first answer. You're looking to be formally dressed. Very good. That's a very, very good start. Somebody said Apple or Google. Brilliant. You should aim high always. So I have a few yes, ma'am. Confident. Good. I think if you're confident, any attire wouldn't make a difference. So yes, you can see the chat. So give me an answer. Which is your dream company? Either you can say that this is the company I want to work with. Can be Colgate, can be Cisco, can be Google, Apple. Or it can be, how do you want to be seen when you are entering into a interview. You can Google a picture if you like and say, this is how I want to look, and paste it here. That is other option. Confident, positive body language gesture. Somebody's come prepared. Very well done, Archit. Really nice. You have thought about it. Kudos to you. So possibly this session should be able to provide you much more than that. How brilliant. Am I sounding confident to all of you? Yes. Okay. Couple of yeses, maybe not to others. So, what is it about the confidence? Thank you. What is about the confidence that does make it? I think one is your calm and composed posture, because I didn't get that answer, so I'm going to give it to you, right? Um, Brilliant. And I have done my homework. I have come prepared for this session. And sometimes when you have had enough of experience, then you don't need to do much of your homework because your life is what you do. And I'm passionate about human resources. I'm passionate about people and culture. So we'll kickstart this session. Thank you for a good start. Some of you, others, I will look forward to hearing from you others during the session. So one of my famous quotes is, I will prepare and someday my chance will come. And this is my famous quote by Abraham Lincoln, is because I wait for opportunities. I do not think that the life would always give you an opportunity. But if you are prepared, the opportunity will come someday. So believing hard work, and if I'm prepared and I have done my homework, as Archit did say, it will come someday towards me. And there are multiple books, multiple sayings which says, whatever you think will come your way. So it's another way of saying, if you're prepared, you've thought about it, you're positive, so the law of attraction might work for you. Have said any with that, we are 10 minutes past and we have a very short time. So I will kickstart into the session and talk about the interview types. So there are 4 types of interviews. While sitting in an interview panel, any company might think of. So if you think that the interviewees who are coming into the interview are not coming prepared, then I think you're mistaken most of the time. Either they have so much experience in interviewing that they know what they're doing, or usually their people and culture or HR team or recruitment team, whatever name you might call, has prepared them with an interview guide and trained them to take the interview. And every organization has a set way of interviewing candidate, or every hiring manager has a way of interviewing person. And what are the 4 types of interviews that an organization might be following? And usually, if you're preparing for an interview and you go through their careers page, they would say most of the time what kind of interviews do they conduct. Am I clear what I'm saying? So the first thing is, whenever you're going for an interview, make sure you're looking at the career page. So if you look at the career page, either it'll say we conduct conversational interviews, or we conduct behavioral interviews, which is a very, very common interview, or they conduct situational interviews, and they can be conducting competency interviews. So competencies is a very old style of interviewing. So most commonly used these days are conversational, where we are having a discussion the way you and I possibly should be having, or a behavioral type of interview. So I'm going to just start into the first interview type. Interviews. These are the simplest form of interviews that over a period of many, many years that the interviewers become used to of. And this is one of the most successful type of interviews that an organization can conduct, but not everybody is able to conduct as it should because they are real, they're less structured, and it's a two-way conversation. So, as the type says, usually when an organization is talking about conversational interviews, they would say to you, "Come and let's get on a discussion and let's see where we go from there." When we say we would like to catch up for a coffee or let's have a discussion, I'll schedule a catch up with you. What they are saying is we will have a conversational interview. They will not come and tell you that let's have a conversational interview. It's going to be very informal in the tone that they invite you for an interview, but make no mistake, it is still an interview. So don't turn up informally, don't go unprepared, thinking we're just having a discussion. Don't think it is going to be as simple as it sounds because they will be prepared. Usually, even in a conversational interview, we can have interviewers sitting with the interview guide, which has been prepared by a recruiter, and he knows the kind of job they are looking for. So, just to give you an example, whenever we are hiring for a very senior position, the first interview round that a recruiter, one of my recruiters, would do is say, we'd like to catch up with you over the telecon for say around 15 to 20 minutes. So the recruiter has a list of questions even coming for a telephonic interview, which is basically the first screen or the first round of interviews. And the interviews would be, tell me about your career journey. They would jump right into it. So they said, I'd like to catch up for 15 minutes, but they have come with prepared interview. So don't forget your pleasantries. Say, I was looking forward, I'm keen into this organization, and try and have most of them. Then, who are your professional role models, or what traits are you looking for? Sorry, and what traits uh, and values do they possess? So, and a harmless questions, who's your role model? Kiran Bedi, or possibly Chori from Google can be a role model, but you need to know a lot about them when you take their name. So, what kind of work makes you excited to come to your job each day? How would your supervisor describe your work style? A very common question, basically saying, what would your boss say about you? How do you handle when someone criticizes your work? One of the hardest for experienced professionals to deal with is criticism or get the feedback. How do you, what professional mistakes have you learned? What interests you the most about this job? So basically, they're asking, have you read all about the organization? Have you read all about the job description? Do you know what are we looking for? And last but not the least, I do ask this question most of the time. Do you have any other offer? And which one would you choose? So if you had two job offers. So conversational interviews are much effective, as I said earlier, because they are trying to connect with you human to human and trying to know you as a person as a whole. And they want you to bring your whole self to the organization. They're happy to share a lot. At time, most of the time when you're having conversational interview, if they find you interesting, they will give you much more information than they will ask you. So if you come in my current organization and have an interview, for first 15 minutes, I will be speaking. Because after the hello, hi's, how is afternoon, how's weather, we would have a good sense, whether we want, how we want to continue. And then I will share more and more and more about my organization and about the job, about the role, about the manager, what are we expecting, what are our values, so that we can get the right person in. And in somewhere in that conversation, we get most of the answers from you. So jumping in to how to answer the two conversational style questions. So one of the questions that they always say is, tell me about yourself. That is your time. You need to be ready with your answer. So this is your elevator pitch. So, what is the elevator pitch? It's just something which you define yourself within 1 minute, preferably, because that is the time basically an elevator should take to reach anywhere. So, you get into a lift or elevator, and within a minute, you should be able to define. So, tell me about yourself. So, you have to have a branding statement, and every branding statement for one particular job is one, and for another can be another, based on which organization you want to work with. So when you present your branding statement, soon after that, you ask a question back. And you say that now I have told you a little about my background. Can you tell me what are the most challenging or pressing components of this position? A second very common question is this job, especially in the case of fresher or university graduates, you would see every position that comes up that would require some kind of supervision. So they want to understand what is the best way to manage you. So they're saying a job demands a certain amount of oversight. How do you handle authority? So, and it can be an experience case also, how do you like to be managed? This can be another way of asking questions. So you basically have to say is, am I good at learning? So I can do what you're telling me to do, but tell me more about your management style and what are your expectations? So you are taking the opportunity to ask questions with every question asked very politely, very respectfully, and humbly without trying to come as super smart or somebody who thinks they're better than what the interviewer might be asking. And you need to be very careful of that, because people who conduct conversational style interview usually are very mature, and they're good leaders and they make you feel important, but don't take that as a weakness and think they don't know anything. If you do that, it's a mistake that you might take that. And when I'm saying that the organization might decide to go about with one particular strategy, it is also a way of them selling themselves to the best of the candidate. Right? Okay. Moving on, the second time of that kind of interviews are structured or the technical interviews. So these are the competencies interviews, and I said these are a slightly old style of interviewing. Not many companies use them, but if you have a manager who's been working for a very long time, might be using this. So when a structured and again, they would tell you that they are going to conduct a competency interview, or they'll say it's a technical interview that we are inviting you for. That is your hint that it is a competency interview. Some companies say it very clearly that we are doing conversational interview, we are calling you for a discussion, whereas others might not. So just be very careful of that. And when they say that we are calling you for a technical interview and it's a structural interview process, then please be mindful and you have to prepare a little harder than the conversation style interview. So when you go for a competency interview, you have to be aware of your skills, talent, abilities, read your resume thoroughly, whatever you submitted, and match it to the employer's need. What does that mean? You read their position description or the job description and see, tick off, underline, whatever you want to do, make a list of things that matches with the job description. So your experience and the person's and the organization you do need to match both, and be ready for examples of those two. So what I'm saying, I'm going to repeat myself here, that your skill set, which matches the requirement of a position description, needs to be very clear, and you need to have an example there. So I have these questions, two questions, which are competency questions up here. And I want you all to think about it. how to do this. So first of the question is, tell me about a time when you failed to complete a task or a project on time despite intending to do so. Any takers who would like to possibly answer this question? No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and answer this one. You have to be prepared, remember this, and this is how it's going to go. The answer is up there. So if you're a fresher, I think this becomes a little difficult. So I'm going to take it for the freshers. So during my final year of university, I failed to deliver my submission by due date. This was because I was heavily involved in research and to end my course and was waiting for results from the survey being taken to conduct that research. Although my work was delayed, I feel that delay was justified. That work was of highest quality. I organized myself so that the relevant people were aware of possible delay in the production of my dissertation. Does it make sense? Is that example that you can use if going for that? Yeah. Okay, moving on. I'd just like you to be very mindful what the answer I have shared with you is doing there. The answer is saying yes. First of all, the first part of the question says, tell me a time when you failed. So you have to give an example of when you failed. So you have to agree, yes, I failed. But I did this because I was trying to deliver the quality, but at the same time, I kept the people or in professors and the assessor informed about what was the risk and why it was happening. Make sense? Why is it important to accept that you failed? It shows how humble, how modest, how honest you will be about a failure, and you will not try to, excuse my language, bullshit your way into the company. So you need to be very clear. People who are asking those questions are not inexperienced, they're not fools. When they ask you a question, they are very clear of what they're wanting to do. Right? So, moving on, the second question on the slide is describe a situation which required the use of your creativity. Again, here, it is a competency based interview. It is asking you to be creative, right? So the answer will be in similar proportion that we discussed above. You have to show that I was being creative. And how you do that? You talk about a time that you have developed a questionnaire, and that questionnaire give you the answer. So you were creative about doing a questionnaire, and you managed to get the findings there, but this training and development staff wasn't taking it seriously. So they on the basis of that survey went about and look at the changes that they could do though. So these suggestions were passed on to the management team, who made improvements to the training and development, established more effective channels of communication, and began an open door policy. So the whole purpose is bring a change with your creativity. So you show this is what you did, but you show the result also. Being mindful of the time, I'm going to take the third part kind of interview, which is the behavioral interview. If you look at the behavioral interviews, they are one of the most common interviews in today's world that are being used on a regular basis. And the reason is very obvious. They are a combination of conversational style interview and of competency interview. So they're best of the both worlds. So if you look at them, they are less structured and have a star. They have a star method, right? So, and that's the best way to answer them. So what we are trying to do is, usually in a behavioral interview, as a recruiter, if I'm asking that question from you, I am very specifically looking for one thing that needs to be, I want to attain, right? So it will be specific to your past work experience and how you handle them or behaved. Sorry. And to assess the capability to take initiative and action. A simple yes or no answer would never do good in a behavioral interview. It requires a semi-detailed in story. And why I have written semi-detailed, please be very clear that people doing the interviews are on a time, right? If you start telling them the whole detailed story, they will lose interest, get bored, and wrap up the interview even before you know. So be you have to go prepared with a star method, and I'm going to talk about the star method a little more as I go through the presentation. So how do you recognize whether it is a behavioral interview or a competency interview or a conversation style interview? So the questions in behavioral interviews often start by saying, tell me a time when, give me an example, have you ever, or describe. So they're looking for an example. They will clearly ask you for example from your past. And that is what behavioral, how you notice it is a behavioral. And you do have to answer them in a specific format. Before I tell you that, I have a bit of a recap. So I want you to all go back to your chat and tell me A, B, or C. Which one is a behavioral question? Is A a behavioral question? Then you write A. If B is a behavioral question, then you write B. And if C is your behavioral question, then you write C in the chat. And I'm waiting to get your answers to keep moving. Thank you, Ronald. A. So give me an example of how you would handle an irate customer phone. Okay. Ronald say A is a behavioral interview question, behavioral interview question that possibly the recruiter would be asking. Good. A and B, great, Pooja, right? B, brilliant. Anybody else? Nobody wants thinks C is a behavioral question? Please respond using the chat. And if you've been listening, you would understand that I have just explained which one of them is a behavioral question. Okay, some another A and B, B, B. Okay, good. I'm making sure you all are awake and I haven't bored you like in an interview that I start telling a story. So I'll keep asking you a question, keep attentive, and I will be happy to give excellent answers, group. I'm surprised nobody thought C was an in behavioral interview. So you've been listening. Thank you very much. Yes, you're right. Both A and B are behavioral interview question. And the basic thing, as I said in my last slide, anybody who asks for an example is a behavioral interview. But more specifically, B. So all of you are brilliantly saying, tell me about a time when you performed well under enormous pressure is a behavioral question. Why A does not fall into a behavioral question is, or it is confusing, is because it's not about your past. It is asking a very generic question, which can be about future if you haven't handled a customer in the past. But if you have handled a customer in the past and you have had an experience like that, then it becomes a behavioral interview question and you can answer it like that. when in the case of A. So what is the C type of questions? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh my God, somebody's talking about competency. Brilliant. Yes, it is a competency interview question, the A one. So what is the C? What kind of interview question is C? Any guesses? I'm happy to answer. Conversational. Good. That's brilliant. Because we've talked only three, so you are pretty much on, but it is a situational interview question. It is a situational, yes. Thank you. So it's a situational interview question which is putting you into situations, right? So we will talk about situational interviews because that's something that we said that we're going to commit, we will talk about it. So how do you answer? Before I go into the situational interview, I do want each of us to think about if you haven't had a behavioral or if you have no work experience, how do you answer a behavioral interview question? So you, as I explained earlier in competency interviews, you look at your like that, guys. So one is tell me about yourself. Oh, obvious question again. A question saying you why should we hire you? So basically, what that question asks is what are your strengths? What have you done in the past, which will tell you about from your university projects, volunteering responsibility, any internship or a part-time job, or a real life situation you have faced. Even if you have helped your brother, your dad at a shop, you can use that as an example. Or any volunteering you might have done that you can use. Or, and that is why they say in university, participate as much as you can in various things. If supposedly you come and join us into this diploma with CTQuest, which will talk to you about soft skills and clinical research skills and the technical. You can quote that, when I was taking this diploma with CTQuest, these are the things that we did. So you need to have few situations ready. So one and the most important thing is work with what you have and don't exaggerate your answer. What I'm saying here is people who are sitting on the other side of the table never think they don't know what you're doing. If you are trying to act smart, they might take you because you are the best candidate, but they know what you're doing. Go with respect, go with confidence, and go with examples. Simple things. So how do we answer a behavioral interview? There is this acronym called a STAR, and I just briefly brushed about it in my other slide. What does STAR actually mean? STAR is an interview type which basically talks about situation, task, action, and result. So, as we were just talking about the last situational interview, or behavioral interview, when you're talking of that behavior, tell me about a time when you had to do that. So, what is it asking for? A situation. Second, what? So, you have to explain this was the situation, but you have to also tell what did I do. But everything needs to be in one sentence, right? What are the actions that you took, and what was the end result? And I'm going to show you how to answer that. But just sometimes people can't remember what STAR is all about. So different people talk about CAR, which is context or a challenge that I faced. What was the action and what was the result? If you ask me to answer behavioral interview question, I usually would answer them in a CAR because that's how I think. Or some people think as PAR, problem, action, result. And the moment they give you this question, so tell me about a time when you had to do this and this. You say, I remember a time when I had my organization or in my university, I had a colleague who was not very nice to me, was mean to me. So that is a conflict question. You have given them a situation, and he would or she would actually make it difficult for me to complete a project, or would not cooperate in project groups. That is the problem, or the task at hand. So if you're considering task, the and but at one of the project I had to do very well, and I knew that he or she would create a problem. So I went ahead and had a genuine conversation with him and said, if he did not fall into line, I will go and escalate it to the professor or university dean or to the mediator or the psychologist. Don't leave it there. That's the mistake most of people say. They said, this was the problem, this is what I did, this was, and they leave it. They don't tell the result. What an interviewer is interested in knowing, okay, you did all that, what happened? And then he decided that it was the final year, and he came to the project and worked with us, and we actually got the second prize in the project. That is the result. Your action taken. I have seen thousands of candidates who come into the interview and say, this happened, and this is, and they leave it. And others are who say, okay, tell me about a time when you did very well, or you had to deal with interpersonal conflict. As they say, I'm a very good person. I don't have conflicts. I'm flexible. I get along with everybody. I didn't ask you that. I did not ask what kind of person you. I want a example. And I can tell you, people up to a CFO level do that mistakes. Very recently, I was interviewing for that position, and it was, and I don't know. Excuse me if there are any accountants or account related people in this team. Sometimes it can be really difficult for them to understand behavioral or emotional questions. So be very careful. Behavioral interview questions are trying to get to understand your behavior in a situation. I'm stating the obvious, but I think it's good to know. Behavioral questions are trying to understand your behavior in a situation. Am I loud and clear? Any questions? Any raised hand? I haven't had any question from you guys from last 5 minutes. Either I'm doing very well or I'm making everybody sleep. Okay. Moving on. Uh, there are some best practices, as we call from the recruiter's perspective. Use the first person. Don't say, our team did this and the team did went and the project group was this. We were doing such well and my manager was doing it. They don't want to know it. They're talking about you. They want to know what you can do. So talk about, I did this, even if, and I worked with a team. Don't, I'm not saying that, actually say that I am Superman and I did everything, or I'm Superwoman, I was the one who was doing it. Nobody's asking you to do that. When you say I worked in a team, you are saying that you're a team person, but be very careful of how you say it. So remember your role and prepare examples for every type of questions. And those interested, we would send a list of questions and their ideal answers after this session. So if you're interested, reach out to Dr. Ashish and CTQuest, Chetan, and they will give you those model answers and questions. Highlight the positive impact that you had in all situations with positive business outcomes. If you would have observed the before all the answers that was related to the conversational style as well as competency based questions, every answer is preferred to be in star format. So it is not only for behavioral interview, but it is for any interview. If you give in a star format, you will come out as a winner. So, thank you. So, how to answer? Listen to the question carefully. Question can be long and winded and may sound vague. If you are interviewing with me, I will went about saying, it's really nice to know that you have been doing such good. You have good problem solving, and it often includes a careful review of substantial facts and weighing of options before making a decision. In this case, give me an instance when you reached a particular business decision by assessing the fact and weighing the options. So it looks like I'm having a conversation with you, but I'm asking you a very subtle question, which, if you do not have an interview, which if you're not prepared for the interview and do not have a example ready, it will be very difficult for you. So make sure you understand the question. Make sure you understand the question before you start to answer. And if you have any confusion, ask again and ask to repeat them. Do not ask interviewer to repeat every question, because that's also a mistake, is it? Take you and while you're taking to organize your answer, you say, yeah, that's a very good question. And you basically are stalling, we say, or you're taking time to think about an answer and how to answer that. So in your mind, it should be, oh, okay, this was the problem part, this was the action, and this was the result. That's how you have to come up with a solution, right? State your answer. Try to limit an answer to maximum of 3 minutes. And do not go vague. Do not go telling them a story of your hometown and how your mom did what and what happened to your sister. Please stick to the structure and do not be attentive, right? Answer the follow-up options. And usually the recruiter would, if is impressed, would have a follow-up question. And actually, if you are smart enough, you can know what is the next question coming up, and you can keep them brief, right? Coming to the fourth and the final one, as we are running out of time, are the situational question. So what was the situational question on that interview? Where do you like yourself to, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's a very, very common question. So instead of giving an actual event, a situational question considers how you might act in a situation that might happen in a company's future. So it is saying, what would you do if somebody, I'm going to stick to the interpersonal, what would you do if somebody does not like you and does not help you to work? There are two ways to answer this question. And you can say, if this happens, I'm going to do this, or say, a similar incident happened with me in the past, and this is what I did, and I will do something around it. So, a conversational or the situational interviews can give you an opportunity to answer the question the best of what you want to answer to. Okay, moving on. Some practice. Practice makes a man perfect or a woman perfect. Gender equality. Tell me about a time when you had to collaborate with a co-worker who was difficult to work with. The reason I have these questions is because these are one of the most common questions. Nobody wants conflict and they want you to be mature about it. Right? Any answers? Any takers for this question? Or do you want me to answer it for you? Okay, here's the answer. So I used to, again, one of the examples from a college student. I used to write for my college magazine. I had an editor who always complained about my work, no matter how hard I tried. I added a second round of proofreading on each page, and since then, I have had received numerous compliments from my editor over my level of polish. So, what are you showing by that answer? It's simple. You're saying, I had a problem. My editor of the college magazine was difficult. He didn't like me. So I worked hard. At the same, while answering that question, you have explained that you're a hard worker without saying, no, I work very hard. Said, I did a always before sending an article, I read it twice, I did a proofreading, I went to my friends, which tells I did not shy away from getting help. And since then, I'm getting compliments. So I succeeded. Without saying the words, you are actually telling all this to the interviewer by how you are answering a question. And that is the power of a star way of response. So tell me about a time you had to choose something else over doing a good job. It's a very tricky question. It's a very, very tricky question. And if you are not prepared for your interview, you will struggle to answer this one. So what is it saying? How can you answer it? So it's basically asking you when you chose life, then or when you did a good job about it. Basically, that's what the question is asking. So you be humble about it and say, I broke my leg and had to take it easy. And I put my health and well-being and my recovery over my doing a good job. But once I recovered, I haven't missed a day of work in last 5 years. So again, you've answered the question, but you have gone a step further to say, I took care, I lost time, I did not do a good job, it was important, but my health was important. But then after that, I have been one of the best employees by being at work all the time. Easier said than done. So be very mindful. So if you look at any answers that I have given, I have again and again and again said that you need to be prepared as you can be. So know the company that you're going into, read all about their recent new releases, find out what the interview type maybe. What is the company blogs? They have any social media pages? And logistics. Somebody said, I want to look formally dressed up. I want to look confident. So you need to dress up. It is an interview. You need to definitely dress up. There are no shortcuts about it. There needs to be a proper resume. Usually these days they already have a resume, but you can ask before going, do I need to bring in a resume if you like? And don't do a mistake that I always did before going for an interview. I decided that it's going to take me 10 minutes, and I forgot all about traffic. So look through Google Maps, make sure you understand what vehicle you're taking, and be there at least 5 minutes in advance.
Prachi, there were two questions in the chat. So there was one question, I'm not sure if they have phrased it right. Uh, how to develop speaking skills so that you can answer fast. I believe they're asking about what is the speed of responding to questions, and trying to find out if you are slow to answer, then how do you develop your speed to answer properly.
Right. Okay. I thought I saw that one. Thanks, Dr. Ashish. It's a very good question. So you always think you have limited time. So how do you answer? So I wouldn't say that you try and answer them fast unless until they are video interviews. There is a trend, and I think if I understand very correctly, Cambridge always does that as a video interview. So what a video interview does is they ask you a course, they send you a link, you click on that. It's a video interview. So it opens up and the camera opens up to you. So you have to be still formally dressed up as if you're going to the interview. And they give you a question and you have 2 minutes to answer that question, 2 to 3 minutes maximum, exactly as I mentioned in this. So if you are prepared, you go at a pace that is comfortable. But the preparation is again the key. So you need to know what example to give, what was the situation, what was the action, and what was the result. So to answer the question straightforward, how to speak fast. You don't have to speak fast. You have to speak slowly and you have to be understood clearly, but answer needs to be only 3 minutes. And you will have to practice that to make sure that your answers finishes, if not in 3 minutes, 100% in 4 minutes and no more. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Prachi, we have another question which is related to what you were saying. Because of the pandemic, and even without the pandemic, there are many companies and many situations where virtual interviews were being conducted or are being conducted. And I believe this situation will become nearly 90% common, where interviews would be held or on camera. So what precautions or suggestions will you recommend for a virtual interview? This is a question from Ms. Pooja.
Excellent question, Pooja. I know you've come prepared for this seminar, so I'm going to answer that for you. One of the big things of virtual interviews is to have your lighting and your camera at the right angles. That lets you be comfortable. So you still have to dress up in a formal interview attire. So you have to wear a jacket, preferably wear a formal shirt, and be formally prepared when you're sitting in front of the camera, right? And while answering the question, you have to look at the camera as if you're answering them. So you have your attire, you have your lighting. So where you're sitting with your computer has to be important. So when I started the presentation, you would have seen my camera was at a different angle and I realized it and I tried to move it at the same time. So this, your passport heads and shoulders is the right way. Answering is how through your eye contact, which we know, which is a gesture. And the most important thing is to modulate your voice, which shows you are confident, right? Because you can't show your body language in a virtual interview except nodding of your head, which is not a very good idea in an interview. So you smile, you be very humble. So precautions is the lighting, the camera angle, no noise wherever you're taking the interview. So it has to be quiet and it needs to give you time to be adjusting to facing the camera. It can be very, very nerve wracking, or it makes most of the speakers really nervous when they are speaking to themselves. So, in a video interview, you're looking at a picture and you're actually answering them. And it makes the best of the speakers very nervous. So, try and do it. I would always suggest to go for a mock interview if you know somebody with your friends, with your family. So they sit in another room and do a mock interview with you so that you become comfortable. Or we are conducting mock interview, you can ask us and we can help you with that. So, and the suggestion is the voice is the only way that you can actually, and the calmness on your face. So you shouldn't look nervous about it. I think that would be my best of suggestions in virtual interviews. And have a notebook if you can in front of you so that you have your examples in front. Actually, virtual interviews should be pretty easy because if you are prepared, you have all your answers there. Does that help, Pooja?
Yeah, Prachi, I think these are some very excellent points. Not only for video interview, I would say these are excellent points even for uh, telephone interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Because many times people make the mistake it's just a telephone interview and they don't take care about how they are dressed, where they are. I have conducted interviews where people say yes, we are comfortable, then they walk out of the room into the main street. And in India, main street is like there are honking, there is,
A lot of
rickshaw, there is a vegetable vendor who will pass by, and it becomes so difficult to communicate. So these are precautions even for a telephonic interview. Just one addition to what Prachi has suggested to everyone: make sure your connection, your video connection, your internet connection, or your mobile connection is good, because you don't want to be rescheduling, or you don't want the voice to be breaking, either of the interviewer or of yourself. So please be very careful about the connection also. And so these are certain precautions for virtual or telephonic interviews.
Okay, I have a question in front of me from Praveen Kumar. At times we are nervous and we have a problem with the language fluency, mostly in English. Can you add a note on how to overcome the same? Very good question, Praveen. And especially in a video interview, you don't have much time. Or even in an interview, they're looking for somebody who is very good with communication. I think that's basic that most of the people do look for. But I can tell you in my experience, if you have come prepared for the interview and you have repeatedly answered the same question looking yourself in a mirror, you will come across much more confident. So if you are struggling with the fluency in English, then the best way is to have a list of questions, and we can help you with some of them, and look at the question, prepare your answer, and look in the mirror and answer them for yourself. The more you do that, more used to you will become of it. And before coming to an interview, if you have a job description and a clear position description, do a mock interview with any of your friends. Very, very important to do a mock interview. It'll help you to feel calm down your nerves, right? How to crack interview as a fresher. I've just throughout my presentation, I think I have gone through a lot of examples. If you're a fresher, you have done enough in your school and your college life to make sure that you can crack an interview as a fresher. So when we are interviewing as a fresher, we are basically looking for somebody who's confident, has the attitude to learn. That is the most important thing as a fresher, is humble and polite and can work in as a team. They are not looking for your experience. They are looking for the right behavior. That is, they're looking for the right behavior. They're looking for the right attitude and confidence. So as a fresher, if you think they know you are a fresher, right? That remember, most of the people who are interviewing, they're looking for a fresher that they can develop. So only thing that you have to uh, be careful is making sure that you do come across somebody who can learn fast and is willing to do it. Oh, I remember I asked in an interview a fresher who did not have a people management experience. So, what is your weakness? He said, I didn't have any weakness. He was very good, and I can tell you just one answer saying, I don't have any weakness. We did not hire him. And he came through a very strong recommendation of a VP level. But if you cannot tell us a weakness about yourself, we don't want you. Yeah. Okay, there was one more question up ahead. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll through the chat. Give me. Any more questions, please feel free to email them to me.
Yeah. So there is a question, Prachi, are grades very important or the knowledge? This is question from Chandana ji.
Okay. Channa, I'm not sure where you're coming from, but I can tell you one thing from my experience. If you're a fresher, grades tell you how is your learning capability or how sincere you are. But your interview is much more important than the grades. They shortlist you maybe on the grades, but they select based on your interview. Because the grades tell us as a recruiter or an interviewer that the person can do well, right? But if you come to me and say, oh, I have done so well in my life that I can do everything, then I'm not going to select you. So your knowledge, actually, not even your knowledge, your behavior, your attitude, and your confidence is much more important than anything. So knowledge, if you're a fresher, then you have a knowledge of basic things that we might be asking, but you have the right aptitude and the behavior to learn, work in a team, not keep fighting, you're not arrogant, then that's more important. Okay, thank you. I think
There is
that's all.
there is one more question from Aisha Kubra. How to deal with a situation where we don't know the specific answer for a question?
A very, very good question. A very, very good question, because it will always happen. Most time it does happen that you don't know the answer to that question. So if you're a fresher, don't try to act smart. If you don't know the answer to the question, you say, I'm not sure how to answer this question, and I might not. If you're very clear that you don't know the answer, just then say that I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question. But if you can tell me what you're looking for, I can give you example from what I have done. So very politely and humbly say, I'm sorry, I don't think I know the answer to that question, if it is a technical question. But if there are any behaviors that you're looking for, I can give you example from the past. Yeah, right.
One final question we'll take. For others, please write your questions to our email and we'll respond to them. This is a question, being modest and humble, how should we convey our accomplishments when asked about it without exaggerating about self to the interviewer?
Brilliant question, Praveen. A brilliant question, yes. So when you are saying your accomplishment, you basically are putting them in an example. And that's the key to everything. You don't have to exaggerate, saying, I did that, I did that. So you say, I did, this was my role, but we did it as a team. That makes you seem humble and a team worker. And not exaggerating. Exaggerating is when you are not real. Exaggerating is not when you have actually done that. And you say, like my manager also helped me, or I had a lot of support from my co-workers. I had a lot of support from my family working 12 hours on a project. That is being modest and humble. So you're when you're saying, what are my accomplishment in life, I have been able to do well and come to this position of, say, senior manager, and I thank my family for being supportive through it. So you're saying you come through senior manager, but you're at the same time thanking somebody else, or saying, I was at the right place and right time, and I was able to put my skills to good use, and I contributed to the organization's success, and use the matrix and data. So if you use the matrix and data, if you are very experienced, always help to make it much more humble.